About 600,000 people have fled across the border to Bangladesh. Bangladeshi officials are meeting their counterparts in Myanmar later on Tuesday to discuss repatriation for those refugees. We'll have more from Yangon shortly, but first, let's take a look at those sanctions. All units and officers involved in operations in northern Rakhine State will not be eligible to receive or participate in any US assistance programs. Any members of Myanmar's security forces invited to attend US-sponsored events will now be blocked. The US is also considering economic sanctions to punish individuals connected to the violence in Rakhine State. And it's working with international partners to pressure Myanmar into allowing access to United Nations investigators, humanitarian organisations and the media. Well, Ediz Tiyansan has been following the story from Washington, D.C. He explains why the US is targeting Myanmar's military leaders.
The U.S. State Department is expressing its grave concern for what it calls violent and traumatic abuse of the Rohingya minority and other communities in Myanmar. And it's also calling for an immediate action by Myanmar to ensure their safety and security. It's asking for humanitarian access to those most fragile areas. And also, it's asking Myanmar to facilitate the safe return of those communities who've already been forcefully displaced from their hometowns. But until these demands are met, the US government is introducing new sanctions against the country. But looking at these sanctions, it's not so much against Myanmar's government or people. It is more specifically towards its military and the security establishment. I mean, looking through the list, there is a travel ban, for example, that specifically targets current and former senior military leaders who can no longer get visas to travel to the United States. The US government says it's also considering new economic sanctions towards some of the individuals who might be associated with these atrocities. And it's also banning a lot of the military units and officers who've either served in that area from participating in some of the US assistance programs or their leaders from participating in the US-sponsored events. All in all, US is already looking into some of the accountability options, whether it's through the UN system, including the Human Rights Council, or other options, including what's under US law, including the global Magnitsky targeted sanctions. And in the meantime, the US makes it explicitly clear that it is still supportive of the transition in Myanmar from an old-time military rule to a democracy with a civilian government. So it is essentially still in contact with the Myanmar's government, but these new initiatives, these new sanctions clearly aim to put more pressure to stop those human rights abuses.